from First Baptist is here this evening. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Let's pray. Well, Heavenly Father, to this day after Memorial Day, in which we've taken time to reflect on those who have given their life, that we have the privilege of being here this evening, we thank you for them. As George Patton said, let's not mourn their lives, but let's be thankful for the lives that they did live, and so we're grateful as we come here tonight. We thank you for the opportunity we have to come not only before you, but before our city leaders that share our concerns and our desires. Pray for open ears and wisdom. We also pray that everything that's done here tonight would be for the good of the city of Andover and its people. So watch over us, bless us, give us wisdom and discernment. We ask that your hand be upon us tonight. We ask it in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. You would stand with us for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item number 5 this evening is the public forum. Is there anyone here that wishes to address the council? Seeing none, I will move on to item number 6, which is the acceptance of the agenda. I don't see anything additional this evening. Is that correct?
What?
Okay.
For item 11-2, I believe? Yes.
Mr. Mayor, I would move to accept the agenda, including the bid tab for item number 2 as presented.
Second.
Motion by CR, second by Brian to accept the agenda with the addition of the bid tab as presented. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 7, we have an awards presentation this evening.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to invite Sean Stewart with AAA of Kansas and Troy Wells with KDOT up to the podium, along with Lieutenant Lance Parker, who is representing our department.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Thank you for this opportunity to appear. Like Chief Keller said, I'm Sean Stewart with AAA Kansas. I'm here to present a special recognition for the police department. First, I'd like to recognize Troy Wells with the Kansas Department of Transportation. He is a law enforcement liaison and works very closely with agencies around the state to make sure that they apply and be recognized for these AAA traffic safety awards. Being an Andover resident for the past 15 years, I'm particularly proud to present the Andover Police Department with their 8th consecutive AAA Community Traffic Safety Award and their 5th consecutive Platinum Award, which is the highest level that AAA bestows on law enforcement agencies. Andover PD is being recognized for a variety of programs that promote traffic safety, including participating in a community-based traffic safety committee, having a departmental policy requiring seatbelt use by employees, participating with the high schools in the highly successful student-led Kansas Teen Seatbelt Usage Program called SAFE, providing child safety seat inspections and fittings to help Andover parents to keep their young kids safe, engaging in selective enforcement programs around the community, especially in school zones for speed violations and for high vehicle collision areas, and continuing to monitor the effectiveness of the Redbud Trail crosswalk across Andover Road and the relocated crosswalk in Beacon by Andover Central Middle and High Schools. First, I'd like to thank all of you as city leaders for your support of the police department and the great work that they do. Andover PD is a model law enforcement agency in the state. I'd like to thank Lieutenant Lance Parker for his excellent work and for submitting the award application. And finally, it's my pleasure to present the police department with their 5th consecutive Platinum AAA Traffic Safety Award. Congratulations, Chief Keller and team. Thank you very much for your time.
I just want to add to that, Mayor, that the department as a whole works on that. It's not just one officer, but all the officers combined that work on all those programs that Sean talked about, whether it's our selective enforcement that's on an ongoing basis to our programs that we have throughout the year, like Click It or Ticket or Safe in the school. So it's all of them, but it's Lieutenant Lance Parker that is the coordinator of that, has been for the last, I think, 4 years, and has kept us in the Platinum organizing all of that. So
I would like to add one thing, though, is that the Kansas Traffic Safety Conference actually asked me to participate in a class or a lecture on what we do here at Andover as part of the Traffic Safety Committee and what we've done. And so I was on a panel of two other agencies, and we talked about our successes that we've done at our local communities. So that was a privilege. That was the second time I was able to do that. So that was a good thing. So.
I'll add one thing to that. When I get other agencies to sign up to do this, I always send them his reports as a guideline to go by because he just does such a great job. So it's something to be very proud
You
of.
can't give away all our secrets now.
Right. Very good.
thank you.
You're welcome. Fantastic job. Move on to item number 8, which is the consent agenda, 8.1 through 8.5. Is there a motion to approve?
Mr. Mayor, I would move to approve the consent agenda items 8.1 through 8.5 as presented.
Second.
Motion by CR, second by Greg to approve the consent agenda as presented. Further discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 9, I know we've seen this before, but we had a couple typos in it, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we want to repeal the previous resolution and approve this one.
We're changing the sale time from 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. on the 3rd, 4th, and 5th of July, which is what we have done in the past, but I mean,
Any questions? Would anybody be so kind as to...
Mr. Mayor,
Caroline?
I move that we repeal Resolution 1907, correcting the sales times for July 3rd through the 5th, and we adopt the resolution to correct those times. I guess it's Wednesday, July 3rd, Thursday, July 4th, Friday, July 5th, and we'll change that time to be from 8 a.m. to 11 p.m.
Second?
Motion by Caroline, second by Brian to adopt the resolution repealing Resolution 1907 as presented. Further discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 10. You didn't have to come up for that, Jacob. We got...
Make sure. She scared me a little bit.
We got you covered. Item number 10, the Heritage TIF District.
Mr. Mayor, as you recall, we've been continuing to work on establishing a TIF district between Kellogg and Douglas. Dr. Mike Lease is the property owner of this property, and this, our city attorney can further explain, but we're just setting a hearing for the project plan to be considered on July 8th. So we'll have both a feasibility...
July 9th.
July 9th, sorry. We have a feasibility study for the establishment of the TIF district to be considered in June, and then this will be kind of the second step of that, the project plan. Just want to be sure that everybody understands it's a conceptual plan for how they want to lay out this TIF district. I don't think they're going to come in here talking about a specific hotel or anything like that. And I know you've all seen a lot of these plans previously, but this will be part of the official process. Do you have anything to add to that, sir? And Dr. Lisa's here as well.
Mr. Mayor,
Troy.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the resolution of intent to consider the adoption of a redevelopment project plan within the city of Andover and set public hearing for Tuesday, July 9th at 7 p.m. here at City Hall.
Second?
Motion by Troy, second by CR, to approve the resolution of intent on this project. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 11, Yorktown Parkway, Phase 2.
A few weeks ago, you approved the grading plans for the Yorktown Phase 2 project from Douglas to Central Avenue. And next on the agenda, we've got some bids for that grading portion of work. But this agenda item is to approve the paving plans for that project and authorize the staff to negotiate a change order on the existing Yorktown Phase 1 project. We feel this is a great opportunity for us to negotiate on an existing contract because prices have risen a little bit over the past few months. The contractors have picked up a lot of work. For some reason, the perfect storm has come together, and maybe that storm is part of the reason. The weather has held contractors up, and they're extremely busy, and their prices have risen to reflect that. So what we're asking tonight is for you to approve those paving plans and authorize us to bring you back a change order on the Phase 1 project to cover the Phase 2 project.
Mr. Mayor?
Great.
I move to approve the plans for the Yorktown Parkway Phase 2 street improvements and authorize staff to negotiate a change order to add the work on the Yorktown Phase 1 project with Cornell and Sons.
Second?
Motion by Greg, second by CR, to approve the plans for the Yorktown Parkway Phase 2 and authorize staff to negotiate the bids. Add the bids to Yorktown Phase 1 project with Cornejo and Sons. Further discussion?
A couple questions real quick. One would be, and I read it in here that the road itself won't be put in or restarted until the schools have completed, I guess, where they're going to put all their stuff, their new football stadium and such. Is that a correct statement or not?
The engineers for both the school and Trans Systems working for us have been working for the last several months on coordinating those plans, and the school finally has a final set of plans out there on the streets, and these road plans reflect that final alignment to service the new school campus.
Okay, so they are done. They're ready to go.
Yes.
Do we know when they're going to start their construction on the stadium? And
The plans are on the next site plan review committee agenda. That's a week from tonight for approval. They are currently bidding some of the work, and they hope to be in construction maybe yet in June.
okay. I've had quite a few people ask me when things are going to get moving on that, as well as the potential of the road within the park. And I guess I felt like it was quite a bit longer out. But it sounds like we could potentially start working on the Yorktown Street when? Same time? Or before
The
then?
grading for the road project is likely to begin within 2 or 3 weeks.
And that would be all the way from Central, all the way to Douglas?
Central to Douglas, yes.
Les, I have a couple questions on this going through the park. I was reading on one of the plans, I think it was PDF number 33 on the next version, and of course we'll get to that too, but it kind of goes along with this one as well. The amount of trees that were taken out, I think it was nearly 400 trees. that are being removed. It didn't say the sizes of the trees. And
Right.
I also didn't see a landscape plan talking about what we're going to put back in that 15-foot landscape area. Hopefully it's not something one every 30 feet or one every 50 feet. It needs to be much, much denser than that.
Sure. Sure, Mike. One of the reasons the tree count seems high is we've got to take out about 150 feet of hedgerow because the road is on somewhat of a diagonal as it comes across the property line between the school and the park. So the majority of those are hedge trees. As far as the landscape plan, one of the things that I've learned in 40 years now of this business is trying to outguess all of the other players in this equation. It's easier to wait until the project is in place, all of the utilities are in place before you design a landscape plan. We've got streetlights, we've got cabling to connect City Hall all the way down to traffic signals at Yorktown Road and over at Kellogg, and all of the other improvements. Once all of those are nailed down and Westar's working on their plan as we speak, we'll come back to you with a landscape plan. And that's your landscape plan.
Yeah, obviously everyone knows that I've been against this road going through the park. And the only, and of course I voted for it no then, that it needed to go somewhere else. But I did say, since you guys were going to approve it anyway, and install it anyway, that the middle landscape aisle needed to be heavily landscaped. So I'm not sure how I can still vote even yes towards anything without seeing something that's heavily landscaped.
You'll see a streetscape plan that follows our streetscape guidelines.
Well, that's the minimum, but we need to go more than that. We're taking out 400 trees in the park.
Okay, further comments?
I guess I would add a point to that. I don't think it should follow our standard streetscape plan because this is not a standard road. It's within the park. It should be its own type of planning. And I don't know if that's already exists within our, I guess, streetscape plans, but this is different. This isn't the same, in my opinion. But for me, I mean, I'm
So
totally for the
I hear
road
a
and-
call for bolstering the streetscaping there in the center medians, and that's fine. What I think Les is telling us is it's not a proper time to do that now.
Yeah,
I don't think any of us are going to not approve a nice landscaping plan there in those center medians, so it's coming. He's advising that we wait.
Yep.
So we have a motion by Greg and a second by CR. Further discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Oppose?
Motion carries. Item 11.2.
Last Thursday, the district took bids on that grading package to do all of the earthwork for the athletic improvements and for Yorktown Road, and we're impressed that the bids on the city portion of the work are about half of our engineer's estimate. There's a lot of economy of scale to moving over 100,000 cubic yards of dirt on the school site and a few thousand on the city street. So we got some good prices here. It's a little bit hard to follow that bid tab because the contractor who had the lowest bid for the job didn't have the lowest price on those bid items that belong to the city road project. So we can't pick and choose. It's one or the other. So we recommend to you that we go with the Meese bid and pay the school district for that grading for the Yorktown Road alignment.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the $138,596 bid from Meese Construction for the cost of the grading for the Yorktown Parkway Phase 2 project and authorize a payment to USD 385 for that portion of the Andover Central Campus Athletic Improvements Project.
Second.
Motion by Greg, second by Troy to approve the bid with Meats Construction for $138,596. Further discussion.
Les, did you say that that was the only bid, or there was more?
No, they had about 6 bidders and a wide range of prices. For the total package, the low price was $580,000 or thereabouts. The high price was over $1 million.
Motion by Greg, second by Troy. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed?
Motion carries. Item number 12. Looks like we have some easements we need.
In order to accommodate the improvements to 159th Street and to install the new sewer line that crosses the KTA and goes on up to 13th Street, we need a few easements. Some of those are temporary easements, some are permanent easements, both for drainage and for street right-of-way. The first of those with Wappenshaw LLC, one of the owners in the Terradoin Golf Course, is the first item. The second is a different partnership that owns the golf club, Seacrest LLC. Those are both easements to accommodate those projects, and the owner has dedicated those without any compensation.
I would hope so. You want to handle them separately?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, I would move to accept the temporary construction easement from Wappenshaw LLC for the 159th Street Improvement Project.
Second.
Motion by CR, second by Brian to accept the temporary construction easement from Wappenshaw LLC as presented. Further discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 12.2.
Mr. Mayor, I would move to accept the temporary construction easement from Seacrest LLC for the 159th Street Improvement Project as presented.
Second.
Motion by CR, second by Greg to accept the temporary construction easement from Seacrest LLC as presented. Further discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 13. Ouch.
Yeah.
You handling this one?
I am. You remember we put together a package of sewer improvements. Part of those improvements were a relocation due to the 159th Street project to relocate sewer lines and water lines. The other part were to extend on across the Kansas Turnpike and up to 13th Street to serve the new Metal Arc School campus. One part north of KTA was designed by Baughman Company for the school district. The other part was designed by Trans-Systems for the city. We combined the two and bid the package together, looking for the economy of scale because this is very deep sewer work. It's a 10-inch pipe, but there are places that it approaches 25 feet deep. We only had a couple of bidders on it, which reflects the glut of underground work for the contractors. And we got what we think are favorable bids. We're recommending to you tonight that we go ahead with the bid from Wildcat Construction, get the work started. The sewer work south of Kansas Turnpike has to be completed by October of this year in order to accommodate the street improvements that we have federal funding for.
Tell me again, Mark, about the split. Now, obviously, we made an agreement with the school as far as the extension of sewer. I recollect us anticipating 800,000 to $1 million, and we're looking at 1.493.
Remember, about 200,000 of that is water. That's a 50-50 petition between us and the school district.
Okay.
So,
So we're over 250,000.
right, that's what I would.
And our agreement with the school system indicates that we're eating that, basically, right?
We're paying for all the sewer project in association with Meadowlark Elementary. Just like to remind everybody, this was part of a much larger scale that include Yorktown, North Andover Road, some drainage. Granted, it was small up in Andover, but while we're taking on a big chunk of this, there were some other concessions that they felt like they made at the time. We could all interpret those again and whether or not they were, but I don't think they were overly anxious to pay for any of North Andover Road. That was one concession. I was hoping this would come in a little bit less and it wouldn't come off as much of a concession, but it did. We're paying $1.25 million essentially for sewer for this project.
So I wonder, and it'll be a while again before the bonds are done, but if in the future when the school bonds projects such as this, how can we tie into it all of the infrastructure costs that are going to follow along with it that the city is responsible for as part of the initial bond for the schools? And I don't know if we had that discussion with them.
We did.
Did we have it before the bond was passed or more after the fact?
No, see, that's the problem.
Yeah.
Any of their site improvements or utilities provided to that school, the new school at 13th and 159th Street, were not thought of. They just simply went out and purchased a piece of property without looking at utilities.
And remember, the ground wasn't purchased before the bond issue. So it's
Right.
hard for us to do site planning or infrastructure estimates on something we know nothing about. You know, I mean, it could have been at 159th and 13th, probably could have been a couple other places too.
I get that, but I guess my point, it is a school bond project. That's
Right.
the genesis of this challenge with our budget and paying $1.25 million for it. So it's pretty much, it is what it is, but it's unacceptable that all this stuff would be built without the additional funds to pay for all the infrastructure as part of the bond.
Troy, this isn't the only place that they've done this.
Oh, I
you
know. I
mean,
know.
this is multiple places, and
Yeah,
and
the whole
ultimately,
bond.
that's the architect and the engineer who are putting this estimates together. They have to know that if we brought in any developer and they're going to put in a site somewhere, they're going to pay for the infrastructure for water, sewer, or road widening, but how
So-
we've let them just get away with that.
It's either negligence
It is
or it's
that.
purposeful.
Well, it's
Those are
probably
your only
it
two
could be
options,
both.
really. Could be both. But regardless of name calling, I would say, is there some kind of an ordinance or some kind of law that we could pass that in the future, if a bond passes and it's going to cause infrastructure changes, that they are required to pay for it with the bond money? Is that something that can be done within a city, or is that something we should even talk about or look towards doing? Because without that,
Well,
there's no teeth.
That was
I agree with you.
One of their arguments is their bond issue can't pay for some of these infrastructure costs that, the special assessment and things of that nature make it possible for us to do, and maybe the split should have been a little bit different. That's probably if we were going to make them pay for it, we would have still issued debt, but in theory, made them pay 100% of it like anything else. But there is some discussion.
And it's not the schools paying a dime. It's us. It's the taxpayers
Well, right,
paying for it. It's
absolutely.
not like it's
You're
coming
you're
out of
actually
it.
paying for it twice.
I know.
Right,
That's
right.
another challenge. But
If you live in the city.
Here's what I will say, Troy, where lesson learned for me, you and I, I'm not trying to put you
Are you
and
putting me on the spot?
Yeah, and the chief and several others were at meetings where we talked about a lot of expenses. Now, I didn't think it was the expectation that I was supposed to sit there and say, have you figured out how much sewer is for, adding a $55 million high school?
Or widening the road.
Right. I mean, and
Yeah.
shame on me. Next time, I'll be the guy who nobody likes to listen to in the meeting.
No.
and-
Shame on them for not factoring into their bonds.
Yep.
They didn't know what they're doing, and their experts, their engineers, and their architects failed them.
Yep.
I'm not blaming the school board.
Right, I
And the
wouldn't
school
do that
board
either.
president flat out told me the voters didn't authorize to pay, $4 million in infrastructure. But shame on their professionals who should have told them that. Any low-class developer goes and looks at a piece of property, the first thing you ask is, are there utilities serving this site? If the answer is no, you better figure out what the cost is. But
That's right.
we're past that. We're eating this because of our agreement. You know, you can't go back and undo this. As far as creating, you know, you had the option before you made that agreement to tell them, sorry, you're paying for 100% of this. Now, some of it's going to be oversized to serve some future development up there, which is great. The water had to go in anyways. It's just unfortunate this bid was a little higher than what we expected. But on the other hand, we just realized some saving from the dirt work on Yorktown. So this is not an end-all, catch-all type of situation. But yes, you did have the authority to tell them, we're not paying for that infrastructure. You are. But we're past that.
So when the next council is here, the next time the bond issue comes up for the schools again, it would be nice to have something in place so that whoever's running the city at that time or is on the council would have some kind of a heads up, hey, don't forget, this should be a part
That's
of it.
supposed to be the point of this joint committee that the mayor and Mike and I are meeting with the school board president, the school superintendent, and other school board members. We're supposed to start talking about issues like this, and we're supposed to freely exchange that, okay, I hear you're talking about a bond issue. Have you thought about the 10 or whatever the number is?
That still relies on people. That relies on you doing that.
Right, but
that
it's-
relies on us having a continued meeting like that for the next 100
But we
years.
have all
Ain't
the
gonna
laws in place to force them to do things. But it came down to it is the money wasn't in there for it. And at that point, how do you take care of it as a community? I hope in the future with this group that we can have way more frank discussion about future projects like this. And if anything we've learned from it is that we would meet monthly with the superintendent for lunch or something like that. But we have to have more of a formal setting where minutes are kept by the city clerk, and we have to have more documentation of these discussions. We both just have too large of budgets at the school district and the city level to, just kind of talk about this casually and stuff like that. When we're talking about $187 million bond issues, there's just going to be costs that come from that we're all going to have to absorb one way or the other. And how we do about it should have been talked way before the $187 million bond issue occurred.
So last statement, and I'm not a litigious guy, but is there any recourse to the development companies in not adding that in that we could go and try to recover some of?
There's nothing to recover. I mean, that's USD 385's issue with their professionals, not ours. Unfortunately, we were left with a byproduct of that major element that nobody factored in, but, we made our agreement.
Mayor, I have one more question for Les. So we're nearly $200,000 over. Is there any still negotiation or them saying why they were over 200,000 than our estimate? Besides what you had written on here already?
The deep depthness.
Yes and no. One of the reasons that the estimate for the portion of the project north of the KTA was that the engineer for the school district didn't include sand backfill flushed and vibrated. We required that. It's adjacent to the road right away, and it's nearly 25 feet deep. You just can't compact this clay over here when you're 25 feet deep. It just has to be backfilled with sand. That pushed that estimate up a little bit. There, like I said earlier, there is a lot of underground work out there right now. So there are only a couple of companies in town who have the equipment to work 25 feet deep in this clay soil over here. Glut of work, only a few contractors. Workers get thin, prices go up. You'll notice we had two estimates there. One was south of KTA. We were pretty darn close. I mean, within a few percent of that estimate.
Yeah, I mean, Wildcat's a good construction company. I know them well and some of their work, but
It's just a difference in the engineering, coming up with the numbers, coming up with the plans.
You know, having,
The cost estimates.
having litigated differing site conditions in construction cases, when you start going deep underground, there's just no telling what's going to happen. And I'm sure that there's some heavy-duty guesswork to get to that number.
If you'll remember, Mike, we came back to you and asked for some extra geotechnical work because we started hearing from those contractors that, hey, that's Butler County. You've got to work in clay soils with the potential for shale and rock and the potential for water. So we drilled this thing every 1,000 feet for a mile and at the end of every line. And those contractors looked at those geotech reports and said, yeah, that's going to be a tough job.
Nonetheless, we're here. We need to get moving.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to accept the bid for $1,493,950 from Wildcat Construction and authorize the mayor to sign the contract.
Second.
Motion by Troy, second by Greg, to accept the bid of $1,493,950 from Wildcat Construction on the 159th Street Sewer Project as presented. Further discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 14, we have some department budgets this evening.
Mr. Mayor, as you recall, we're trying to bring in each separate department at various meetings. I think we had a presentation at the last workshop and at our last council meeting. Tonight we have Parks and Recreation to kind of go over some of their future needs and, of course, some of their past history. We're trying to show a little bit of both, so I think Rick and Daniel and Seth are here and ready to answer any of your questions.
Get this to work here. All right, well, this should look very similar to the other parks, or I mean the other Public Works budget presentations you've seen already. This is the last of the Public Works. On the total expenditures, it does look a little slighted. If you'll notice in 18 and 19, 19's expected or budgeted, we do have $400,000 in there for a potential bathroom and a CIP that raised that number up. So if you took that large CIP item out, it would be trending pretty uniform in the last 2 or 3 years. And then in the personnel expenditures, here's where I think we've had some changes in how we've done things over the last few years. We've brought our event director on, and part of her budget, correct me if I'm wrong, Donna, is charged to this budget. If we go further down, you'll see our staffing level, actually on-site staffing levels, where they're at. But I think some of those personnel increases, some of that is attributed to that changes. In the contractual expenditures, you see a dip in, you'll see it in 15 and 16, it starts to rebound. You'll see this in both contractual and commodities. And what happened in 15 and 16, we had some changes in superintendents in the department. And during that time frame, some of the expenditures were down because we were just changing staff and they were just trying to learn and get going. Now that we have Mr. Shapaw on staff and we're getting back to taking care of some things that maybe have been delayed a little bit during those time changes while we were trying to get our staffing all straightened out. But you'll see the last 3 years and the proposed, we're trending, close to your inflation rates and so forth. And some of the, in the commodities expenditures, you'll see a spike in 18. A good portion of that is actually for the landscaping and some things that are associated with the Cap Fed amphitheater. Staff did a lot of that type of work in-house, and we absorbed a lot of that cost inside our budget. That would explain some of the spike in that part of that budget. But as you'll see, if you take out the 15 and 16, the trend is pretty reasonable trend, I believe. capital outlay expenditures, you will see some jumps in the proposed 19. That is that 400,000 is the big jump there. We talked about a possible bathroom. We'll be talking to you guys shortly about that. And then in the proposed 2020, we're footholding some money for possible park expansions to be determined later. That's obviously out there a little bit. But other than that, you'll see that we're trying to hold somewhere around the 150, go up a little bit and down a little bit from year to year, but somewhere in that neighborhood on our capital. On our capital projects, again, you'll see that $4 million for expansions. You've seen this 3 times or twice already, but a share of a purchase of a mini excavator for Public Works, Parks share would be $15,000. We had under the current year, we have a phase 1 budgeted for CIP for lodge remodel, and we've upped it. It was 15. We were planning to be 15 each year, but we upped it to 30 because we keep battling some air conditioners in there that are aging and need to be replaced. We're trying to be proactive and budget for that so we can get those replaced and not have to try to find the money inside an existing budget that doesn't really count for a lot of AC replacements. We have several mowers that are aging. They're 7 years old now, so they'd be 8 years old at the time of replacement budgeted. We have a redo of a 13 splash pad. As some of you may recall, that came out pretty high in some of the surveys we've done as a splash pad. The splash pad we have is aging. It's quite not the way you design it out now. It's got some elevated surfaces and with water and things get slick, so there's just kind of a new way of doing it. So instead of trying to spend a bunch of money and have a splash pad that maybe is not up to current standards, we're just proposing to kind of redo it, and that's that one. Purchase of a new truck. This truck's 21 years old. We were talking about this. We think that'll push us out another 3 or 4 years before we'll have to buy any more vehicles in this department. It's been on a trend. We've had to buy some about every year, but I think we've finally gotten that kind of where all of our vehicles will be in pretty good shape as a general rule. And the last item under capital projects for the 2020 is the 1-ton salt sand spreader. We bought a 1-ton truck this year, and we just pushed the salt sand spreader purchase onto the 2020 budget. That'll assist us not only in the parks, but if we get a lot of icing and they get caught up, we can deploy that vehicle out into the cul-de-sacs areas where we have a hard time with our large tandem dump trucks trying to navigate those and put some salt down. And those usually have a hump in the middle and they get really slick and they're really hard to navigate anyway. So the 1-ton is a 4-wheel drive, and that would assist us in getting that work done. Here's our non-administrative FTEs. We've shown you this similar slide. In 2013 was the last time we added a full-time, just flat added a full-time FTE to the budget for the Parks Department. The fluctuations you see in there is generally related to either whether or not we could fill all of our seasonal positions, and then in 2017, 2018, we when Katie, the event director, came online, Seth's department gave up, what did you call that? Your number 2 assistant director, and went with some seasonal type of positions to fill some of those roles. And so that equates for some of that drop there. And then in 2020, you'll see we are at 2.25, and that just relates back to how things a lot of it has to do with seasonals and how we move positions around a little bit. But staffing level and the FTEs in that park department has been fairly consistent since 2013. I'm gonna let Daniel talk about these. He prepared some pretty good slides, the next 2 slides on some benchmarking, and I think he would be best to present that.
Good evening. We did feel like we wanted to drop some of this information in. It's not the only metric to have this discussion by, but felt it was a good place to start. The national Recreation and Parks Association compiles data across the country, basically showing how Parks and Rec departments prioritize their spending for the spaces and the people they serve. And there's a few things that we probably want to bring to your attention, even though we've seen some creeping up in our budget the last few years. We're trying to maximize the contractual and the commodity monies that we have to do as many projects and prepare the spaces that we have as best we can for the city. Right now, our operating expenditures is just around $720,000. For a community of Andover size, that national benchmark is just right around $1 million. So we are pretty thrifty, I guess is one way to put it. We also have a few fewer employees based on our community size. And you'll see we spend per acre maybe 30 or 40% less caretaking our spaces. Not only that, we have 180 acres that we take care of here in the Parks Department for the city of Andover. That national average for communities of our size is 138 acres. So each one of our crew is not literally taking care of more. We don't divide our work exactly that way, but we've got more space, fewer people, and do it with quite a bit less money. Some of this data is segmented in communities under 20,000 citizens in size. Other metrics let you go down to the 1,000 population, so you can get pretty detailed. We aren't trying to compare ourselves to Kansas City or Charlotte, North Carolina, or something like that, Wichita even. These are fairly specific. There's plenty of data from these reports. If anybody's interested in talking about it more, we sure can. But that's some food for thought.
So I guess I'll ask you a question.
Yes, Troy.
When you say it's food for thought, is that because you have potential and ask that you're going to do based on these numbers? I mean,
we aren't asking for any FTEs this year, but we'd ask you to consider that as our spaces continue to grow and our responsibilities continue to increase.
I agree. I guess in my mind, you're doing obviously an exceptional job. It is hard to even compare one city to another with the same size due to the fact that the shapes of our parks are what they are. They're different than everyone else's and that kind of thing. So I can't see it as apples to apples, but just seeing how on average we're doing so much better or more with less, it's exceptional. And what I wouldn't want to do is throw a bunch of money with the same amount of work in order to do nothing more than what we're already doing, if that makes sense.
Sure.
That's on our side of the bench, that's what we have to fight for, just like you have to fight for.
Totally. Rick and I have worked really hard. He's worked hard throughout the entire Public Works Department to increase efficiencies. 3 years ago, we really reevaluated our equipment that we were using to work on these spaces. We cut down our groundskeeping and mowing time per week to about 165 man hours. It was a little over 200 a couple years ago. That's simply by shifting some equipment styles around. We reinvested in that. We've also shifted to 4 10-hour days during the growing season, during the warm half of the year. Just cuts down on our startup and breakdown times. We get more projects done. So we're doing as much as we can too with that type of stuff that doesn't cost us anything.
Yeah, I think you guys are doing exceptional. And if money was thrown at you, those innovative things that you've done probably would not have happened because you wouldn't have needed them. You would have had 3 or 4 more employees and you'd have been fine. But because the cost was what it was, or the amount, your budget was what it was, it allowed you to. And so I just feel like, and it's a philosophy for myself personally, is that's important, that you get what you need, but also understanding it's taxpayer dollars. There's got to be a balance of, okay, well, we can't just give you everything you want. You got to have, which, not just you, every department. Right. Same thing for everyone. So, exceptional job. That's good information.
Here are, good segue, here are some of the items that we've added to our responsibilities in the last 5 years. In the Parks Department, irrigated space has doubled. We've added 2 new playgrounds, and we've invested over $15,000 in bringing our other playgrounds up to code. We added the all-season restroom in Central Park. Obviously, everybody knows the Capitol Federal Amphitheater was added. We were talking about the Redbud Trail this morning. We know for sure that in the last 5 years that 4 miles have been added, but it might actually be the entire 6-mile stretch happened within this last 5 years. It's on the border. We renovated and added the little longer than 1 mile central jogging trail. You've had 2 dog parks added with water service. You've had the Redbud Trail Park. You've got the full service event vendor parking lot. We relocated and reestablished the tree nursery down at the wastewater plant, and we've had a pretty significant increase in special events. We had 8 in 2018, which everybody's familiar with. So those are the, you asked us to talk about the expansion of duties and impact in the last 5 years. That's what we have on our list right now. Do you all have questions about the park portion so far? And if so, we can answer them. If not, Seth can continue.
Thank you.
Okay, so since 2014, these are our total revenues and expenses for all of our programs. We've had a steady increase pretty much every single year. We had a dip in 2017 because that was the first year we actually got rid of tackle football. But it wasn't a massive dip in revenue because we also had an increase of about 130 kids in baseball and softball. And you can see that we had another increase in 2018 with pretty much all of our programs went up that year in program numbers. You'll see that on the next slide, how big that increase was from 2017 to 18. And then 2019 and 2020, those are just our projected budgets. I would actually anticipate 2019 is going to be closer to the 2020 number, just because we also had an increase of about 70 kids this year in baseball and softball again. So I would anticipate it's going to be closer to that 72,000 range as far as our revenue coming in this year.
Seth, are we at capacity? I mean, what?
Baseball and softball, we are at capacity. So we're actually going to have to, with the field space that we currently have, we're going to have actually have a cutoff number next year as far as the amount of teams we actually allow in. And then anyone that wants to sign up after that, they're just going to have to be put on a wait list. Currently this year, with the amount of rainouts we've had to cancel and reschedule 47 games. And we have used up all of our weekday practice or weekday spots, and we are currently scheduling games on the weekends. So we're doing Saturday and Sunday games from now through the end of June.
Wow.
Next slide is our enrollment numbers. See where we were at 2014. We were at 444 kids. This year, I would say by the time we're all said and done, it'll be closer to about 1,000 kids. Probably around 980 kids is my guess by the time we factor in our fall and our winter sports. 759 is where we're at right now, and that pretty much is just baseball, softball, and then part of our pickleball registration. Next slide. This is some of the free recreation programs that we actually provide with any of the profits that we make off of our recreation programs. So we try to take that and provide just some different programs for the community that they can come out and enjoy for free and not have to worry about paying any money to bring their family out and have some fun. We've had superhero experiences where we've had Batman and Wonder Woman out here. We had about 350 kids lined out the door of the library to go and meet them. Various sports camps. Last year we had a camp that had former Nebraska and NFL players that were out there doing some stuff for the kids at a highly discounted rate. The kids got a pretty big discount on being able to attend that camp. Nutrition workshops. We provided Girls on the Run, and any expenses that we had for Girls on the Run, it was a free program to the community, but we still had a few expenses ourselves, and those came from just any money that we had from our other programs. Last year we had ballet in the park, which for a first year it wasn't as high of numbers as some of the other locations, but we had about 250 people here to attend ballet in the park, and they say that pretty much every year it just goes up from there. They said Sedgwick County Park on average gets about 1,000 people out there to attend that one-day event. So I would anticipate in the next 4 or 5 years we could be up to those numbers also as for that event. And then this year we brought in the movies in the park, even though our first one got rained out. Hopefully the rest of them throughout the summer will not, and we can actually utilize the Capitol Federal Amphitheater for some movies and just free activities for people to come out and enjoy. You guys have any questions on anything?
So a question on the 13th Street Park. I believe you've been looking into like maybe a way to reconfigure to get more fields in. Is that right?
I don't know if we've actually been looking at reconfiguring it to get more fields in. I know that, there's been ongoing discussions as far as if we're going to need to add on a new sports complex or what we would be able to do. But yeah, we're going to have to figure out something as far if we're wanting to accommodate the growing number of kids that are wanting to participate in baseball and softball. We're going to have to find some more field space somewhere for some new diamonds, whether that's at 13th Street or if we end up doing that at another site. We'll have to definitely find some others if we want to be able to take away the cap on our programs.
Troy, you kind of took some words out of my mouth that I was going towards as well.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. Mark, we had a study on recreation parks and what we should be looking at, and even adult activities as well. And I think we're at capacity, so it sounds like we need to be looking at those numbers again to see what we can do with 13th Street Park. Maybe we need to, have a clean slate and redo it.
Right. And I'm hoping at our next joint meeting with the school district, we can talk about this topic. I have a proposal from a consultant, but what I want to say is those numbers aren't everybody in Andover. And the discussion needs to be larger than just the 700 or 800 or 900 kids we have in a recreation program. We have a lot of people leaving and going to Wichita for this programming too. And maybe it's not economically feasible, but I think we need to analyze the issue and decide what our community can afford and what we're willing to pay for. But
Yeah.
I just don't want to, I think our recreation programs are great, but they're not all there is to this community in terms of recreation. And I think we need to try to address that in some manner. Maybe we come back to and say we're not interested in doing anything broader, but I think we at least need to look at the data that says whether or not we can afford it and what the community is willing to pay for.
Considering so many people move here for the school system, meaning bringing their kids along, I just don't. It seems like a no-brainer to me to make sure that our sports facilities are appropriately, sized for.
That's not what our program is limited to.
Sure. With the assumption that people come here and buy gas and go to McDonald's and they do that kind of thing. I know every time that we go out, when we go out to softball with my daughter, it's always where we're going to go eat.
Yeah.
Every time.
Right. Well,
Derby, look at it.
Here's the question, and I think why Mark is trying to attempt to paint this in a broader brush. If you live in the Andover School District, you're eligible to participate in our programs. Well, only if you use the average, 60% of these kids don't live in Andover and don't pay any other than the entry fees, where the revenues come from. They don't participate in the cost of developing these fields. They don't participate in the cost of paying for our parks crew and participate for any of that. They just pay a fee, registration fee, and play. The idea of a rec commission is not new, and that's why a lot of communities do that. It kind of levels the playing field, pardon the pun, as far as who's paying for what. Because, as I said, if we limit the number of participants to those who live in Andover, you have plenty of space, you have plenty of fields, and you have no cap. When you open it up to people who don't participate necessarily in the cost of the infrastructure, it's the same conversation we just had 20 minutes ago, it creates a little unfair burden on the people that live in the city of Andover.
I think we've talked a few times now, at least in the last 8 years, about possible putting together a rec commission. I don't know if it would take a study to figure out how that would work, how much it would cost, what it would be needed, or if we have people on staff that already have done that or understand it well enough to be able to just do it.
You want to finish your comment from just a few minutes ago?
I think you were getting at what I was getting at. There's going to have to be a broader way to pay for all this stuff. And I'm not necessarily saying it's specifically a rec commission. Maybe if you built a complex and attracted people to come for tournaments and stuff like that, you could make a lot of revenue off of that. I'm not quite that optimistic that you could pay for all the capital improvements you would need to do associated with that just from a local tax base. I mean, I think operating wise, we could put together a lot of programs, but it's going to have to come from a community investment, and how you go about doing that is what needs to be demonstrated. But I don't feel like when we've had this discussion, anybody's ever said, here's the potential for the economic impact if you have tournaments coming into your community. I mean, I don't think anyone's ever, we know it could probably be great, but it's hard to go to another local government entity like the school district with just, I think this is going to be a smash, without showing them some real numbers related to that.
Yeah. Well, I think that we can probably do that. I mean, there's other parks in the state that have done it, and I've visited many of them, and I know that you have as well, for our kids doing travel ball and stuff, and just seeing some of the programs they have, and even adult programs, and I think that's something that we could, benefit from.
But to the mayor's point, I think Seth has said before that at least in baseball and softball, 40% of the people come from outside, in our programs, come from outside the city. And so yes, if you reduce that by 40%, our current facilities for that particular issue would be taken care of. It still doesn't take care of all the people going to West Urban and Southwest Boys Club and, wherever else they're going to play these other sports. But it would take care of our programs. But we're so intertwined. A kid sits right next to a kid on the other side of the county line, and they want to get a team together. You know what I'm saying? They're in the same classroom all the time, and it just will never be realistic to expect that they're going to separate like that. We could introduce them the idea of paying twice as much as the kid who they sit next to in the classroom, but I don't think anybody wants to really do that either. So it's not a lot of easy choices, but I think there's a lot of opportunity.
See what you caused?
I know.
Appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
All right, move on to item 15. I guess we need to recess the Andover City Council meeting and call to order a meeting of the Public Building Commission.
I can make that motion.
Second?
Well, I was going to make the motion, but that's fine.
Oh,
I thought that was it. All right, motion by Troy, second by CR to recess the Andover City Council meeting and convene the Public Building Commission. Further discussion. All in favor, say aye.
I call the meeting of the Public Building Commission to order. We'll start with the roll call on my far left hand.
Mike Warrington, Commissioner.
Item number 3, minutes. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes of the same?
So moved.
Second.
We've got a motion by Greg and a second by Caroline to approve the Public Building Commission minutes of March 13, 2000 construction easement for Yorktown Road project. You want to tell us what this is about, Luster?
Back in 2000, in the school central campus at Douglas and Yorktown Road. As the two projects have developed, the central campus athletics easement just gives the contractor the right to work on the alignment that you just approved in the plans a few minutes ago in that interim period until we bring you a replat of Central Park a couple months from now.
Is that clear as mud to anybody?
Literal mud.
Well, the PBC actually owns the park as of right now, right?
Correct.
My only question, Mr. President, would be is when does this lease expire? It's got to be close.
The bonds on the lodge are paid off in 2019. I think we do have a gazebo issue on the gazebo that goes till 2021, has the PVC on it. So, so the golf course.
To the Public Building Commission, as we start untangling all of these Public Building Commission parcels from one another. My understanding is they're all heaped together in one giant house of cards. Is that true?
Yes, that's correct. In a process that started a long time ago.
Right.
The property is all covered by one lease, and as you continue to add improvements and compound on that, and we've discussed it every time, you lengthen the period of time by which you'll be able to return that property to the city proper. And the most recent one is the amphitheater. Really, you could have built that structure to include only portions of the park or portions of the building that could be released when those bonds were paid off, but it wasn't built that way, and so you can't shift gears in the middle. The only way ultimately to do that will be to retire all the debt, or simultaneously with the retirement of the debt, refinance all the existing debt so that you can change the structure. But right now, that's the structure we have, and Mark's right, it's all in there until the amphitheater is retired.
JT, are there any benefits to having it all together? Like, I don't know, like you get better rates or anything like that, or should it all be separate?
At the time, it was very convenient because there's just one big legal description for Central Park, and that was the benefit. It was easy to do that way. That's all. There's really the property is not considered collateral. The lease is considered the collateral. So there's really no collateral benefit or reduction in interest rate or anything from having all that property tied up in the Public Building Commission. It just is.
Interesting.
Sorry about that.
Now that we have that excellent discussion, I would entertain a motion for the construction easement.
I'll make a motion. I move to approve the temporary construction easement in Central Park in order to accommodate the Yorktown Parkway Phase 2 construction.
Second.
We got a motion by Greg and a second by Troy to approve the temporary construction easement in Central Park as presented. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I would now entertain a motion to adjourn the PBC meeting and return to the Hyatop City Council meeting.
So moved.
Second.
We got a motion by Caroline and a second by Greg to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.
All right, we will reconvene the Andover City Council meeting and move on to item number 16. The first of two executive sessions. I would be so glad if somebody would make a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Go right ahead.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion recess in an executive session for consultation with the city attorney, which would be deemed privileged in the attorney-client relationship per KSA 75-4319B2. The session is to include the governing body, city administrator, city attorney, zoning administrator, city engineer, and assistant public works director. The open meeting will resume in approximately 15 minutes.
Is this for land purchase, or are we talking about attorney-client privilege here? Okay, we don't want either the assistant public works director.
Oh, I'm sorry, I just read it as it told me to read. Okay,
I understand, or the city engineer. I would like the assistant city administrator in this instead of those two other people. So can we amend?
Okay, I would amend the motion
Thank
as
you, sir.
recommended by Mark, since my screen went blank and I can't change it.
I will second that motion, or somebody's already seconded? I will second your amended motion there, T. Roy.
Okay, we have a motion by Troy and a second by CR to recess into executive session for consultation with the city attorney, for which would be deemed privileged in the attorney-client relationship per KSA 75-4319B2. The session should include the governing body, the city administrator, the assistant city administrator, and the city attorney. Anybody else?
Zoning administrator.
And the zoning administrator. For approximately 20 minutes. The open meeting will resume at 8:32 PM. You need 20 minutes or you need 15?
I said 15.
15 minutes, that sounds better. 8:27. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
out of executive session.
Second.
A motion by Troy, second by Greg, to come out of executive session. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we return to executive session as an extension of the one we were just in for an additional, can I say 20 minutes?
15.
15 minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
A motion by Troy, second by Greg, to extend the executive session under the previous pretenses there. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
It's not long enough. Boring.
Council, I need a motion to come out of executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Brian, second by Caroline to come out of executive session. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 17, that's another executive session.
Executive. Mr. Mayor, before we do that? Sure. I'd like to make a motion that I would move that we authorize Triplett, Wolf, and Garrettson to respond to the attorney for the community college regarding a lawsuit in Butler County District Court, that the manager contact our insurer regarding the matter, and that Triplett, Wolf, and Garrettson act as our counsel unless and until other counsel is named.
Second.
Motion by Troy, second by Brian to retain Triplett, Wolf, and Garrettson as counsel in the lawsuit issue with the college. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 17. I think that
Item
is
17,
it. Executive session. Did I mess up?
I will entertain a motion I will make a motion to recess into executive session for the purpose of consultation with the city attorney and representatives of Triplett, Wolf, and Garrettson, which would be deemed privileged in the attorney-client relationship under the justification.
I'm sorry,
This is
Councilmember Nelson, that was the motion that we
That's the first
desired
one.
for the last meeting.
I messed you up.
Did you hand him?
Yeah.
Is the one on the agenda correct?
Executive session for preliminary
Yes,
discussion.
But it says assistant
except
city
it,
attorney.
except it includes the assistant city
Okay.
attorney and others who do not exist.
I would move to recess into executive session for preliminary discussions relating to the acquisition of real property per KSA 75-4319B6. The session to include the governing body, city administrator, assistant city administrator, city attorney, and zoning administrator for a period of 20 minutes.
Second.
Motion by CR, second by Caroline, go on executive session as presented. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. 5 more minutes?
Yep, that's what they said, 5 more.
So we gotta wait.
2?
4.
9:08.
Oh, by the time they get in here, it
Use
probably
restroom.
will be.
You've been waiting how many years to get that one off? Did you set him up?
Mr. Mayor.
Okay, council, I need a motion to come out of executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Troy, second by Brian to come out of executive session. Further discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We are down to member items. Brian, you want to start us off?
I don't have anything tonight.
Caroline?
I don't have any either.
I don't either.
CR?
Likewise.
No items.
Mike?
I just had one question to Jenny. On our concerts, we're going really slow on the attendance
Sales.
with tickets. What else can we do?
I would love to know the answer to that. We have a big obstacle. We have an outdoor venue in weather like the pattern we've had in the last month.
I am so
I don't
glad
know.
we canceled any May concert.
I said that
yeah.
this
Wow.
weekend, because this would have been the month, this would have been the weekend last year that we did our first concert.
Right.
So, I mean, I am a little bit at a loss, but I
Yeah.
can't believe it doesn't have everything to do with an outdoor venue and a crazy weather pattern that people aren't willing to buy tickets a month out.
This is like, it's like a new business too, okay? I mean, it takes 4 or 5 years to get your feet underground, and this is year
I
two.
want to see it flourish.
I do
So,
too, and it's
yeah.
year 2, and we're doing okay. And the majority of these sales we know happen a week before. The season ticket things hadn't taken off like we thought, but we thought we wanted to offer it. We're dealing with industry consultants. We met with them. We've developed strategies and plans to include print and digital marketing, and TV, and we've got a broad spectrum of stuff here that we're working on. We'll get there. I know we'll get there. I'm confident we're going to get there, and it may not be this year, but in years to come, this is going to be a place to be. We're adding events at the park, which is a good thing. There's movies and other stuff, and we need to drive this home as a destination. But the more stuff we do there, the better off we're going to be, and I think we'll get there.
Sounds like a nice place for an RV park.
And
my God.
I do think some things that came up late last week were not included in Katie's memo. We are going to work with the radio station KWLS. Will be present in the Riverfest parade this weekend, I believe it is, if I have my week right. And so we're trying to think of some more guerrilla marketing type tactics that are a little bit more grassroots than what we've done to date.
Cool. Thank you.
Next to the radio station float with me and hand out red dirt flyers Friday
Sure.
night? All right, man, let's go.
I wonder if it's just, we haven't had the big name yet. Well, we had a couple when it was free,
Yeah,
but
our
not
big
since we
names
got
are big money too.
We also hit
I
100%
know,
of our
but-
sponsorship goal too. So that means
Well,
people
I
want to be
mean,
associated.
How many years has the Dam Festival in El Dorado gone? 2, 3 years?
This is the third year.
Just 2.
This is the third year. And obviously they've had some pretty large entertainers come there, and it's an outdoor facility too.
They're paying millions of dollars.
Well, the one thing I would say too is if you look at the level of names, though, they have come down from year to this year. I think that a little bit of that funding is catching up a little bit. I mean, the huge, expensive artist acts for sure in those first couple of years. Not quite as big of names this year. So it's a lot of risk and gamble in deciding how much, because you put out the money on the front end for the artist, and then you got to get it back in the tickets. And
Yeah.
I think we're in the right niche.
Yeah.
I do.
What if we looked at some of the new and upcoming artists that haven't made it big yet?
We have, and we continue to do those. We actually tried to explore a couple of them this year, and it didn't work out so great, but it's a timing thing.
Yeah.
But you also need a name to draw them in, too.
Right.
So we've
a lot
got a
of
good
hard work.
selection of music this year. Let's put it to you that way. So, staff have anything else? Were you done? I'm sorry.
Yes, I'm done.
Anything else? Let's go. Let's get out of here.
Chief had some.
Just a reminder, Saturday, 6 o'clock, Central Park, we have our annual Police and Fire Festival. You're all welcome. Come and grab a burger and a dog and something to drink and see the entertainment.
Is it going to be dry?
That's up to Jennifer.
You have the fire truck out there spraying more water? Perfect. Anything else?
Make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion by Troy, second by Brian. Further discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned.
You can stop by the Chamber of Commerce on Andover Road to pick up more information about local businesses and community activities. Although Andover's city limits sit on the Sedgwick County line in metropolitan Wichita, we are all residents of Butler County, which has a very different personality and flavor. The eastern edge of Butler